So if you wanted to trace the history of modern music, that energetic, loud, electric sound that defines rock and pop, where would you even start?
Right. Most people would probably say the 1950s.
But the real story of rock and roll is so much older. It's this centuries-long story of musical fusion.
It is. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to trace that path piece by piece.
Show how these ancient traditions evolved through technology and just pure resilience to become the music you hear on the radio today.
That's the mission. We're sort of reverse engineering the sound, starting from its deepest roots. We want to show you the key musical moments and technological leaps that turned West African traditions into the sound of an electric guitar.
Okay, let's start there then, with what you're calling the original sound. When enslaved people were brought to the American South, they brought musical traditions with them that were, well, they were completely different from anything in Europe.
Completely different. What made that sound so distinct was its complexity.
How so?
Well, European music was often built around a single melody and harmony. West African traditions, on the other hand, were built on polyrhythms.
So multiple rhythms stacked on top of each other.
Exactly. All layered and happening at the same time. And this wasn't just noise, it was a form of social communication. It was deeply rhythmic and intensely participatory.
And they had to be incredibly resourceful, right? They made their own instruments, like banjos and drums, from whatever they could find, just to keep that cultural heritage alive.
They did. And out of necessity on plantations, the very structure of the music became foundational. They used work songs and something called field hollers.
Which were basically loud calls to communicate across long distances.
Right, and to synchronize their labor. But the real engine behind those hollers was the call and response pattern.
I think we've all heard that. A leader sings a line.
That's the call. A short, powerful statement, and then the group answers back with the response.
It creates this constant driving pulse.
It's brilliantly functional. It coordinated the work, for sure, but way more importantly, it became the rhythmic backbone for the blues and, eventually every single genre of rock music.
So we've got the rhythm and the structure.
Yeah.
But what about the emotion? What's the thing that makes the blues sound so, well, blue?
That's where blue notes come in. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so explain that. What is a blue note?
In Western music, notes are usually played precisely on key. You hit a C, it's a C. Blue notes are pitches that are intentionally bent or flattened just a little bit.
Just slightly off key.
Exactly. It's usually the third, fifth, and seventh notes of the scale. And that tiny difference creates this feeling of tension, this raw, kind of mournful feeling. It sounds almost imperfect, which is what makes it so emotionally perfect.
And that deep emotion finds its way into religious music. This brings us to soul and structure.
Spirituals were vital. They mixed African rhythms with Christian hymns, often with these hidden messages about freedom.
But it's gospel music that really changed how music was performed, right?
Oh, yeah. Gospel comes along later, and it's just explosive. You got energetic piano, powerful choirs.
And the church basically becomes this training ground for future rock and R&B singers.
It really was. You learn how to project your voice, how to use vibrato, that little shake in your voice, to convey deep feeling.
And they learned about musical drama.
Yes. A gospel song builds and builds until it hits this huge, powerful climax. That technique building tension and then releasing it is a key ingredient in pretty much all popular music.
But all this energy and emotion, it needed a sturdy frame to hang on. And that frame was the 12-bar blues.
The 12-bar blues is maybe the single most important structural idea in American music. It's a predictable pattern, just 3 sets of 4 measures.
So why is being predictable so revolutionary here?
Because it's like an open source code for music. It uses a very simple chord progression, just the 1, 4, and 5 chords of any key.
Which means anyone who knows the pattern can play together.
Anyone. You could be from 2 different states, never have met, but if you both knew the 12-bar blues, you could jam instantly. It created a universal language.
And the lyrics had a pattern too, right? The AAB thing.
Yep. You sing the first line, you repeat it, which gives you a second to think of the next line, and then the third line finishes the thought. It made improvising lyrics so much easier.
Okay, so we have this musical language. Where did it really take root? That gets us to geography. From delta to city.
The Mississippi Delta. That's the birthplace of acoustic blues.
This is rural music.
Very rural. You have musicians like Robert Johnson, Sunhouse, playing acoustic guitars, and they often use slides, like a glass bottleneck from a bottle on the strings.
To get that whining sound.
That's the one. It makes the guitar sound almost like a second voice, just full of emotion. The lyrics were really somber, reflecting the hard life of sharecroppers.
And this music was played in places called juke joints.
Yeah, these were just informal social spots where people could gather, dance, and escape for a little while. They were loud and intense.
But then, everything changes. The Great Migration happens. Millions of African Americans move from the rural South to northern cities.
Like Chicago.
And the blues goes with them.
It does, but it has to adapt. I mean, in a loud Chicago club with trains and traffic outside, a little acoustic guitar just gets lost. You can't hear it.
So out of necessity, things had to get louder.
Exactly. This is the moment. Musicians start using amplifiers and electric guitars. And this is the birth of urban blues, or what we call Chicago blues.
It's not just about volume, though, is it? It's a whole different attitude.
It's a different energy. The solo act becomes a full band. You add drums, you add bass. The sound gets heavier, faster, more aggressive.
And you have pioneers like Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf leading the charge.
They're the ones who took those Delta traditions, plugged them in, and just supercharged them. If Delta blues was a whisper, Chicago blues was a shout. This is the direct, undeniable precursor to rock and roll.
Which brings us right to the Electric Revolution. The guitar goes from being a background instrument to the absolute star of the show.
It's now a lead voice. It can compete with horns and drums. But musicians didn't just stop at making it loud. They started experimenting.
Messing with the technology itself.
Yeah. They figured out if you push the tubes in an amplifier too hard, you get this fuzzy sound we call distortion.
Right.
Or if you stand too close to the speaker, you get that screaming sound feedback. These were originally considered mistakes, you know, but they became the essential texture of rock music.
And artists like T-Bone Walker started taking these long improvised solos.
For sure. And once companies like Fender and Gibson started making solid-body electric guitars, the door was blown wide open.
Leading to rhythm and blues, or R&B.
Yep, in the late 1940s, R&B is basically the blues structure, but with the tempo cranked way up. It's upbeat, it's driving, it's made for dancing.
And the lyrics changed too, right? It's less about hardship and more about teenage life, cars, dating.
Precisely. R&B is the bridge. And then, in the early 1950s, rock and roll finally emerges. It's a blend of that R&B energy with some country music influences.
But the real secret ingredient, the thing that makes it rock and roll, is the beat.
The beat. Specifically, the backbeat.
Okay, break that down.
Most music emphasizes the strong beats, the 1 and the 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rock and roll flips that. It puts a heavy, forceful emphasis on the second and fourth beats. 1, 2, 0, 3, 4.
It just shifts the whole center of gravity of the music.
It pushes it forward. It makes the music feel loose, a little rebellious, and incredibly danceable. It was a complete break from the formal pop songs of the time.
So who are the people who finally put all these pieces together? This takes us to the key pioneers.
You have to start with Chuck Berry. The man was a genius at synthesis. He took those electric blues guitar licks and combined them with these really clever lyrics about being a teenager.
In his guitar intros, they're iconic. They became the blueprint for what a rock song should sound like.
Absolutely. And you can't forget his showmanship, the duck walk. That kind of stage presence comes straight out of the high-energy gospel tradition we talked about.
And then there's Bo Diddley.
Oh, Bo Diddley brought a whole new rhythm to the table, this syncopated 5-accent beat that comes from even older African-based traditions. It added this whole new rhythmic layer.
But the story doesn't end there. It actually circles back across the Atlantic with the British blues explosion.
Yeah, this part is fascinating. You have these young kids in the UK, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton's bands, and they become completely obsessed with American blues records.
They're studying Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf from thousands of miles away.
They are, and they take that raw blues foundation, but they add even more volume, more aggression. They polish it up a bit.
And in a strange twist, they sell American music back to Americans.
They do. They reintroduce a whole generation of young Americans to their own musical history. And in the process, they create the idea of the guitar hero.
So when you look at music today, that legacy is just everywhere.
Everywhere. Hard rock, heavy metal, it all runs on the pentatonic scales and power chords that came directly out of that Chicago blues sound.
And even in music education, the 12-bar structure is still the go-to for teaching people how harmony works.
It is. The whole journey, from West African rhythms and field hollers all the way to a distorted electric guitar, just proves that music is always changing, but it's always built on what came before. The blues is a story of resilience, of turning hardship into a global art form.
So what this really all means is that every time you hear a driving backbeat in a pop song or a soaring guitar solo in a rock anthem, you are hearing the echo of history. You're hearing the sound of ingenuity that just refused to disappear.
See you next time.